today's question. I want to know your opinion on the Ottawa Senators retiring number 25. Pilsy, before we get into the details of last night's game, what did you think of the announcement that number 25 will never be worn again in this franchise?
To be honest, I was very surprised. I don't think we are expecting this. There wasn't kind of any lead up to it or anything like that. And personally, I think it was more of a Ring of Honor thing. But I also thought Chris Phillips was more of a Ring of Honor guy. So I think Chris Phillips and Chris Neil, those guys are at the same stature when it comes to Ottawa Senators lore. And you're not going to find me upset about this. That's for damn sure, because Chris Neil was a lifer Ottawa Senators player, drafted, only played for this team, over 1,000 games. And he was one of those guys that every fan, no matter if you were someone that loved the skill players, grinders, the shutdown defensemen, the tendies, whatever your style was, you were a fan of Chris Neil if you were an Ottawa Senators fan. And if you weren't a Sens fan, you hated the guy. And that's something that I think all Sens fans could kind of come collectively together and be like, yeah, Chris Neil, that was our guy. And Ross, I'm not going to take your favorite stat away, so I'll hand it over to you so you can say the all-time legendary Chris Neil stat.
Well, I mean, there's a few of them. When you look at just the longevity at the position he played is astounding. You just don't see guys able to play 1,000 games the way he went through each and every game. One game for Chris Neil playing 12 minutes would be about 20 games for Jason Spezza in terms of the impact on his body and how he was able to just battle through. This guy is 20th all time in penalty minutes, 2,522 PIMs, and he was never suspended, not once. And in today's NHL, that probably isn't the case, but he played by the rules that were given to him. He eclipsed 200 penalty minutes in 4 separate seasons. Pilsy, we're going to do a little trivia because I know you love when I put you on the spot with a little trivia. How many NHL fights did Chris Neil take part in?
And he played over 1,000 games. Holy crap. I'm going to say 170.
Oh, you're very close. Stick taps to you, sir.
Ooh.
176 NHL fights.
Oh, man. I mean, Ross, I've never been in a fight in my life. I couldn't imagine getting in 176 fights as a job.
Yes, in his first season, Pilsy, first NHL season, he's coming out of junior. He needs to make a name for himself, or he did play a little bit in the minors as well. He fought 17 times in his rookie season at the NHL level as a 22-year-old. So, this guy, he knew his role, and then he grew into a more respected player. There was a time where the Ottawa Senators put him on the power play to just stand in front of the net when they had so many other weapons. He actually ended up scoring 8 goals on the power play that year in 05-06, finished with a career high 16 goals and 33 points. But to me, it's not the points, of course. It's not even, it's not any one situation. The fact that he was always the first guy to stand up for his teammates. It's the fact that you've already done it for Chris Phillips. And I'm glad you brought that up, because for me, if it was my team, if you don't win a Stanley Cup, you have to be a Hall of Fame level player to get your number retired. But
Daniel Alfredson, Frank Finnegan.
Yeah, exactly. Way to throw in old Finney in there. Next Monday, by the way, is when Daniel Alfredson will be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. We'll do something special for that here on the Locked On Senators podcast. I should also mention that Neil's 25 will go into the rafters on February 17th against the Chicago Blackhawks. We might have to make a trip to Ottawa for that. I feel like that's in the cards.
We should do our next meet and greet and ticket day for that. That's right in the middle of the season, like we talked about.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk. We'll discuss, but stay tuned on that. But Chris Neil, this guy just meant so much to the city. He's back working with the community and the team, which is all great. This is the one thing where it's like each franchise can do whatever they please. It's not a Hall of Fame. It's not a set stat. You make your own history. And who the hell was going to take number 25? Who was going to be the next guy to wear that? You'd have to have a lot of cojones on you to do that.
Has anyone worn it since Neil left? No.
chance. No
Yeah.
chance.
So, yeah, that's the thing. If Chris Phillips is retired, Chris Neil deserves the same respect. So, no problem for me at all. And yeah, that's like Chris Neil is just such a legend. Like, there's so many moments that you can think of. Like, I even love Ross the end of his career. Remember when he
Comes
gets
in.
brought into, yeah, he comes in to take care of the Tanner Glass issue that the Ottawa Senators were having. And that's the thing. Like, he's the kind of player where just his aura, like just having him around has an impact. That's why it's so awesome that he's part of the alumni that's back in the fold with the team, doing good work in the community with Chris Phillips, like he mentioned in his video. And also shout out the Sens. That was a cool way to let him know, especially he had no idea that was coming in it. And he got to see pure emotion from a tough guy like Chris Neil. So that was cool.
Yes, 100%. I absolutely loved that. And it was a bright spot in a game that ended very poorly. But with Chris Neil, man, it's a great honor for him, and we're very happy for him. Just a soldier. And my favorite Neil highlight, there's plenty, and you should go check them out all on YouTube. Like, do you remember when he smoked Victor Hedman behind the net in, I believe, Hedman's rookie season? That's a 6'6" monster. And
No.
Neil was never the biggest guy, but he was always able to play bigger than he was. He fought some heavyweights. He was always giving up height. But my favorite situation, Evander Kane, when he was playing with the Atlanta Thrashers, made it his mission to go after Erik Karlsson. Threw an elbow at him,
Yep.
took a penalty, comes out of the box, and on the next faceoff, Kane kind of comes in just to like dig the puck out, and Neil is a heat-seeking missile, just launches himself at Kane, starts a melee, but it was just him saying, "You're not touching our best players, or you're going to have to deal with me." And that was the type of
Yep.
player he was, and it's a great honor that Chris Neil will have his number 25 up there in the rafters with Chris Phillips, with Daniel Alfredson, and the great Frank Finnegan's number 8. So
we got massive news that the Ottawa Senators will be retiring Chris Neil's number 25.
Bruce is a part of the committee.
Yeah.
Right on.
Okay.
My vote put him over the top.
There you go.
There you go. I'm sure Chris Neil appreciates that. But what was the lead up?
Right now, Dean Brown is sitting somewhere saying the same thing. My vote put him over the top.
Hey,
Anyway, sorry
he
about that.
needed all the votes he could get. And what led up to this moment? Was it the fact that the Senators are really doing a great job and working hard to bring back alumni to this team? So they thought, hey, Chris Neil's getting back into the fold. Chris Phillips is into the fold. Chris Phillips' numbers is retired. Chris Neil, very similar kind of stats as Chris Phillips in the fact that they're both Senators for life. Like, what all led up to this point and the decision that it's time to retire Chris Neil's number? And if you're watching on YouTube, Ross pulled up the picture of Bruce Garrioch and Chris Neil together last night, both looking great.
Well, 30th anniversary season, and when we
Yep.
sat down as an honoring committee, that was kind of what led to this was it's 30th anniversary season. We hadn't, because of COVID, we hadn't met as an honoring committee for I think 3 years, and so it was kind of like people back in the rink. This is the right time to honor people, and we had talked about Chris Neil in the past. And whether it was Ring of Honor or retire his jersey, I thought Dean Brown did a terrific job presenting on Chris's behalf. And Chris Neil isn't having his number retired because he had 250 points in his 1,026 NHL games. He's having his number retired for a hell of a lot more than that. And I said this to I think Patricia Bowl on Twitter. I said, because she said, "Hey, this is why it's being retired," and she was right. It's being retired. You have to be from Ottawa to appreciate everything Chris Neil has done for the organization, and I think you're going to see, some Ring of Honor announcements here rolled out in the next few weeks, and you're going to see more people honored. Because I think it's all part of the 30th anniversary celebration. And to me, Chris Neil was just a natural choice. I had no issue with it. I had no qualms with it. I think he was an important player for this organization, and and what he did, what he meant to the city. He didn't just play a role on the ice; he played a role off the ice. Him and his wife, Caitlin, very uh, uh, involved at Rogers House. I mean, it means a lot here.
15 years with the Ottawa Senators, half of the franchise's entire existence. You certainly
Yeah.
understand why he's being
Yeah. Oh
honored.
yeah.
Now, Bruce, I got to get your take on this. We asked this often. I feel like more so when there was no hockey. We were doing 6 shows a week during the pandemic, but it's a great question. Which of Chris Neil's teams, if you put them in a round robin tournament, who comes out on top? Like that 03 team that was a goal away from the Stanley
Yeah.
Cup final, the 2017 team to kind of bookmark it, or was it one of those 2 years in the middle where Chris Neil himself had career years, but when the Senators were kind of at the top of the league, 05, 06, and then the next season?
Well, I think 03 was the best team that never achieved what we thought they'd achieve. You had Cherry, you had Hossa, you had Havlat, Redden, Phillips, Alfredson. Uh, I look at that team and I just think that was a team where if they could have found a way past New Jersey in that game 7, Chris Phillips scores the dramatic overtime winner to get them to 7 in game 6 in New Jersey. If they could have found their way past that would have been just, I think, a magical run.